Hello, this is the LEGO Jurassic Park Dinosaur Fossils T-Rex model, the big one. It comes with 3,145 pieces. It cost me $250 US. It's 250 euros, 220 pounds UK, or $330 Canadian for a model that is about 105 centimeters or over 41 inches in length. So hopefully it's very obvious that it is not to scale with the two little minifigures it comes with. It also has this very nice plaque with a lot of gold printing on it, and it just looks good. And looking at this from the other side, the stand is not too substantial, although you do put a good amount of time into building it, and it is very strong. The model has some Easter eggs in it that you mostly are intended to experience while you build it, so I won't show you all those, I won't spoil them. But this does have the newest color of geode dual molded piece with the regular orange, transparent orange, as the alternate color in there to represent amber. And there is this panel right here that can be pulled off to reveal just a little something extra, and that's just a sticker there. The head, or at least the upper section of the skull, is almost entirely based on the existing kit that we got before that was just a skull, just the T-Rex skull, but the jaw has been lengthened up here. You're able to open and close the jaw quite significantly, and there's a new set of pieces that were used, that you've probably seen by now, for the neck in order to have enough strength in there. I actually expected this to be extremely strong. It's not as strong as I thought. It does have very strong clutch, literal clutch action in there. It snaps, it's all ratcheted, and these gears, the large bevel gears here, have a very, very large pitch to them. But this kind of feels like with a little bit more weight, it's not going to be able to hold it up anymore. Like it's holding okay. I'm not worried about it falling down anytime soon, but I don't have to put too much additional force on this to make it want to come down. So it doesn't feel like this is going to be as strong of a joint for future use as I thought perhaps it would be. But this does allow you to rotate the head around like that, and you're able to angle it up and angle it down. So you do have functional range of motion like you would want. Behind that, the neck has a static little S curve in it that looks pretty good, especially looking across the profile of the top of it. Aligning all of these in here is annoying because they just don't self-align. So no matter what, if you touch them, they're pretty much going to get misaligned as far as how they're angled forward and back. I think you're intended to have them angled back a little bit, but yeah, it's just something where if you suffer from OCD, this is probably going to be your least favorite part of the entire kit. The way that this is set up with the scapulae and the arms, I think is fine enough for what it's supposed to represent. It's not the most 100% anatomical model. It does not have the little riblets down here, which we always have to talk about because everybody wants to talk about that because, well, the science now thinks that these have little riblets down here, but this is a Jurassic Park model, and the Jurassic Park prop did not have those because they hadn't been confirmed yet at that time. This probably also shouldn't be connected in the middle, but it's important for structure. So ultimately, I think that what's been done here for the front of the torso of the thing is pretty decent, and you actually have a good range of motion for the tiny little hands here. So I think this works out well enough, and it's very comical just how small those things are compared to this huge model. The ribcage is great. This is all self-aligning, with I guess the exception of just angling the pieces front to back, but it's easy enough. They've got enough spacing in them. It's easy enough to get them close enough to straight. If there is a little bit of variation in there, it just makes it look a little bit more realistic. But the angles inward and the lengths, those are all static, and that feels nice. It feels nice and organic, the shaping around here. I like that. I like how that turned out. I'm not the biggest fan of just how straight this is right here, but it gets worse towards the tail. I guess this is okay a little bit. This is a tiny bit more variation in there. Would have made me personally happier. I like what's done around the hip. It's not perfect, but the structure had to be very, very strong for that. And I think that it ultimately ends up looking good enough, especially from a distance. Let me go ahead and, rather than going down the legs, I'll go ahead and go back towards the tail. So this becomes repetitive. This section here looks very repetitive. At least they do have that difference of height right here. This becomes straight. And then here, this is all repeated. And then within here, this is repeated. So you really have these well-defined sections that have a lot of repetition in them that break from the more organic feel of the rest of the entire Fossil model. I feel like most of this looks very, very organic, but just back here, if you're looking at it straight on from the side, it's just not the best to me personally. Yeah, I'm gonna tell you how I feel about things, right? You are able to curve the tail, as you can see here. I'm able to curve it in one single direction, or I can put a little bit of an S in it, which really helps with establishing more of an organic pose, just something that looks a little bit less contrived. So that's nice. I do appreciate having some articulation there. It's not a whole lot. You cannot articulate the legs though. These are completely static. They're built a little bit funky. Some folks have had issues with the fact that the stud direction is different from left to right, but ultimately at the end of the day, I guess while I was building this, it felt weird, and we were talking about that when we were building it live over on Twitch with the community there. But at the end of the day, it doesn't bug me anymore now that I see it here, and I do very much like how the feet are done. The individual phalanges here do have a little bit of articulation, so you can pose them up a little bit, make them not look completely static. You can get them all the way down on the ground. I guess I'm not the biggest fan of the olive color in here. I wish that rather than the olive, there'd been more green in there. But then again, you want more contrast. You don't necessarily want to make it look the most believable and most lively at this point. And yeah, I guess ultimately I'm okay with it. I just personally am not the biggest fan of that mix of the dark green and olive with so much of the gray. You can see one little Easter egg that's obvious over there with the printed amber piece that's minifig scale. But yeah, this is the part where you can see anti-studs are facing forward on the upper part of the leg. And like I said, in the end, it just doesn't bug me that much now that this is actually completed. What bugs me the most, by the way, the pelvic bone here is done pretty well, like how that's set up, how tight together it is in there with minimal gaps, and the shape and proportions, that's all good. But what bugs me the most is just right here. I don't like how all that looks. That looks unnecessary, machine-like, unnecessarily just inorganic. It looks more like armature there. The very obvious round pins, and also the fairly high contrast color of the is that dark orange? No, it's medium nougat. The medium nougat color for the plate back there. Again, the main stands here are great. They're just so thin, and yet they are strong enough. If I wiggle this around a bit, see, it's wow. That's a whole lot of weight. I mean, you can see how the inertia of the tail has it wanting to stay. This is a lot of weight that's moving back and forth, and the strength is more than good enough to handle this. Interestingly, when you want to move this model, you kind of pick it up like a large long gun with two pistol grips. You just pick it up here and here, which is really good. These are super sturdy and very, very convenient. Just watch out for the length of the tail, know how long the load is that you're carrying, and it's convenient enough to move around. And I just don't feel any issue with this. I don't have any concerns about durability or flimsy little bits that are going to fall off easily. What I'm worried about most when moving around is just getting these things all misaligned again. But all in all, again, you kind of help to see the overall size of it, the overall mass of this. This is a very serious thing. And ultimately, what you care about is not all the little details. You care about the whole thing. And the whole thing, I think, is pretty darn good. I think this is kind of nice how they presented an early scene from the original Jurassic Park movie as also part of the stand and display for the included figures. The figures, I think, look good enough and recognizable enough if you already know what they are. I think that if you had absolutely no context here and the accessories weren't in the hands, especially the analog for a raptor claw there in Grant's hand, I don't know, maybe Jurassic Park superfans will immediately recognize them. But if you're just a general light cinema buff, you might not immediately recognize who these characters are supposed to represent, what actor and actress they're supposed to represent. I especially feel like the hair here is it's just a little bit much. But ultimately, the printing that is there, especially with having the arm printing, I think is good. I think the quality is good. I think the graphic design work for the prints is good. That's also a good face right there. So all in all, not bad. It could have been a little bit better in my personal opinion. And then finally, these are the only leftover pieces. Surprisingly, just a small volume for such a big kit. One more thing, hopefully to help establish scale, I figure this would be a good thing to include at some point in the video, just a regular Lego T-Rex that we're used to and have been used to for some decades now, and just looking at it from the side to be a little bit more fair. Yeah, so this is roughly minifig scale, right? Something in that range. Tyrannosaurs were various sizes. They had a range, but I think that this is a pretty decent representation. So that shows you just how much larger this model is. Again, it was $250 US, 250 euros, 220 pounds UK, or $330 Canadian for 3,145 pieces. And as you saw from the leftover parts, the telltale pile of leftover parts, there weren't a whole lot of 1x1s used in this, tiny pieces. It has a lot of medium small pieces, but not a whole lot of absolutely tiny pieces. So when you look at that part count of 3,145 pieces, it helps to convey just how much stuff is here. And, the size of the thing, yes, it does have a huge hollow for a rib cage, but still the size of the thing is very, very significant. I do not feel like I have been ripped off by Lego here, especially when you consider it's licensed. And when anything is licensed, it's gonna double the price. People seem to feel that that's necessary, and that's the reason for things costing as much as they do. Not always, but this. All things put together, all things considered, this just feels like a respectable deal, especially amongst the made for adults and their big adult money kits. The 18 plus icon style sets, usually they go for the big bucks because they can, because again, it's going after the folks that have the money and wants to spend it, wants to get rid of it as quickly as they can. And yet, this is a substantial thing. A modular building would fit right about in here, kind of fit within the main frame of the stand in front of the legs, I would say, and that's about a $250 value of space of Lego plastic. That has a lot more part density than this, but I just feel like this is more than fair. I feel like they could have charged more for this and people still would have gone out and bought it for like $300. I really think that there wouldn't have been too much balking at it. So I'm so glad that it's not $300, that it's $250, because it actually feels like a pretty decent deal here. And ultimately, it's just a really cool looking thing. And how many, I like to compare to non-Lego things when looking at value, but how many places, how many ways can you get a skeleton, a model of a fossil that's this large, period, at all? There just aren't a lot of options out there at all. Certainly, if you could get like a regular traditional model kit of something of this size, it would not be $250. It would be like $400, maybe more. Seriously. And those you have to put together with glue, and maybe you have to paint them and stuff. So all in all, I am very happy with this. I think that it's worth the money. I don't have any major complaints. The biggest complaint, again, is just a little bit of repetition out there. And that's not even repetition in the build. It's just repetition in how it looks, just the visual repetition in it. I wish there was a little bit more organic. There was just a little bit more variation back there. So that's it. Thank you very much for watching. I hope that I brought you some value with this video, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye for now.